Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Necromanaics Horror Podcast. It's Necro Thursday, and I'm here with my co-host, Jeff Kashid. How's it going, Jeff?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. A little sad that the Halloween season is over. I look forward to it all year, and it comes and goes, and it's all this anticipation, and now it's gone. Now we're in November.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. For the first time in 10 years, I did 31 days of horror.
Successful?
And, yes, I watched 31 movies, one for each day. And
That's awesome.
I had a lot of fun doing it. I used to do it back in the day, 10 years ago, and I would write like little reviews on Facebook. This time it just, popped up on Instagram stories what I was watching with a little caption, didn't take up too much of my time. And it was a lot of fun. And I find myself kind of missing having that. I have to watch a horror movie today. I mean, technically I could still do it, but yeah, I agree with you. I love October, love Halloween. We live in Austin now in a house and we get trick-or-treaters. Very different from living in an apartment in LA. It was a lot of fun, man. I always look forward to next year.
Was any cool costumes with the kids or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, there's one kid dressed as a vampire, but his cape said IRS on it.
IRS.
Awesome, I do live in Texas after all,
Was he like an older kid? Or was he like an older kid, like who understood like some of these things, or was it,
I don't think so. Maybe like 12, 13 ish.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
it's funny. Maybe his right
funny
parents. Maybe his right parents put him up to that.
Yeah, and it got kind of late, and my girlfriend Taryn left a bowl of candy out, and I brought, and she's like, go grab yourself a couple pieces, and I look outside, and someone had taken the whole bowl of candy because there was I bought like 2 bags, and I was gonna say it takes a real piece of shit to do something like that.
I agree, man. And I'm going to give you a little anecdote here.
All right.
I'm recording this in Elizabeth, New Jersey, at my girlfriend's place, and she told me that one year she lives in more of a neighborhood as opposed to like where I live in Jersey City, which is like a little more of an urban environment. And one year she did the same thing, and some scumbag kid did exactly what happened. Like they took the entire thing, except she got the culprit on video.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So that sucks. If anyone out there is like young, like a kid, and you want to learn manners, definitely be aware of stuff like that it's not cool to steal even on Halloween night,
I mean, they did me a favor because with all that leftover candy, I would have been snacking on it constantly. I mean, I went all out. We got like 2 bags. Each bag had something different in it, like a mix. They had like Twix, Kit Kats, Reese's, Hershey's, Almond Joy. No one likes Almond Joys.
My mom likes Almond Joy. She had a cameo on a couple episodes ago. My mom actually likes Almond Joys.
Really, moms do like Almond Joys. It's always like the moms who like that like candy that no one else likes. But yeah, I love it. I'm going to look forward to it next year and try to do this 31 days of horror every year.
I failed. Like I chumped out on a 31 days of horror. Just like the last couple, I would say the last 12 weeks. I mean, very, very, very unusually busy for me. Starting a new job. There's just been like a bunch of odds and ends going on that's just been taking up a lot of time. So I chumped out. Like I try to rig it where like some nights I'll watch 2, instead of 1, and it was just like, I'm catching up, but it's like it's just not the same, man. So hopefully next year. I really do like to engage in that because it's fun. You know what I mean?
It is fun, man. I talked to a lot of people on Instagram, people I've never spoken to before, and I had a lot of back and forths, good conversations, people recommending me things. I enjoy it. Like I always end up making like a friend when I do that, just someone to talk about horror with. It's a lot of fun. I really like doing it.
Speaking of friends, let's give our rundown of the other horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. We got this elitist group of podcast producers, the Illuminati of podcasting. Of course, I'm talking about the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. So kicking off the week, every other week, we have Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666. On Tuesday, Jackie Smith brings us into the Necrosphere, the only music podcast I listen to regularly. Every week I look forward to an episode. Jackie covers the extreme end of music, black metal, death metal, that sort of thing, doom occasionally. Wednesday, I come at you guys with Everything Went Black. That's the my first attempt at doing this thing. It's been doing it for quite a while at this point, and it's a very diverse group of subjects. Like, for example, we had the Addams Family on. We had other musicians. Josh Barnett, the former UFC champion, was on a couple of times on the episode. I've had members of your former band ISIS appear on there.
You've had all of us, right?
I think I've had everybody. Yeah, at one point or the other. Maybe not Cliff. I have to reach out to Cliff eventually.
That would be a good listen.
Yeah. Recently, just kind of like a variety show. It's like the Carol Burnett show of podcasts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Thursday, of course, is Necro Thursday, the finest horror review show on the internet. Friday, Spitball Media featuring Mike Scandato's brother, John Draper. Saturday is a day off from podcasting. Go out, enjoy the weather now that we're in November. Sunday, my buddy Carl brings us Soul Knocks. And Carl and I have a collaborative thing that we're doing called Darkness Weaves. Every other month, we swap who does the show and who posts the episode. And we're focusing on the work of Carl Edward Wagner, a sadly obscure horror and weird fiction writer that has a long reach. Actually, he's influenced a lot of stuff that you guys have probably gotten into. But Carl and I finished phase 1 recently, which is the collection In a Lonely Place, which Valancourt Books recently published last year. So we completed our exploration of that, and now we're moving on to some of his other work. The next up on the block is the Kane saga. So we're going to be getting into that this month on his show first on Soul Knocks. And then lurking out in the stratosphere, we have Iblis Manifestations, brought to you by Cheyenne of the great band Trivax. Now, Cheyenne is too much of a free spirit to adhere to a regular schedule. So he just kind of drops these episodes when you're least expecting them, coming out of the darkness like a beacon of light. So yeah, that's it, man. That's we all support each other. We know that you guys listen to pretty much all these shows, so that's awesome. We got this movement going on right now, which I feel really honored to be part of. So it's a lot of fun.
Hell yeah, man. Speaking of podcasts, I was disappointed. I actually learned from Horror Wolf and Brandon Legion that Mick Garris is ending his podcast post-mortem.
Dude, that's a bad. I was going to bring that up too, man, because I love Mick Garris. I love listening to him. I like him more as like a commentary guy than maybe his films,
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I would agree. Although Mick Garris has made some cool stuff. Actually, my girlfriend was just watching Riding the Silver Bullet, the Stephen King adaptation.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that was a good one. I've been meaning to go back and watch his version of The Shining. It's been forever since I've seen it.
Have you checked out anything? But I know that you we're deep into the 31 days thing, but anything notable since we talk about stuff we've been checking out recently?
Yeah, there's a couple things. I picked up on Criterion Blu-ray movie Cure and the others. The others I did watch during my 31 days of horror. Hadn't seen it in quite a while, and man, is that just a really good, classic ghost story.
I'm a big fan of both of those films.
Yeah,
you and I did Cure a while back.
We did. Yes, that is a top 5 favorite horror movie of all time for me. I absolutely love that movie. The Criterion. I haven't watched it, but I'm sure it looks great. It's packed with extras. mean, Criterion is something you really it's they really make it worth it for you to purchase it.
I always agree with that. Definitely. I got a bunch of Criterions in my collection as well.
Yeah, I've been upgrading some stuff that I did have that's not Criterion. A lot of it's out of print though, unfortunately. Criterion stuff tends to go, especially the genre stuff tends to go out of print. Uh what else? Oh yeah, rewatched the Mothman prophecies during the 31 Days of Horror. What'd you think about that one?
I'm a fan, man. I love the Mothman prophecies, and I just love the whole folklore of the Mothman. I think that's really cool, like story. There's like all this connections with all these different men in black, and it's like a there's damn, I can't there's a book that I have that I read a number of years ago, the Mothman. It's not the Mothman prophecies, but it's another book that talks about all that.
Yeah.
Title's escaping me right now.
Um, it was interesting. I remember when that movie came out, I was still living in Boston and I saw the trailer and thought, all right, this looks kind of lame. And then actually seeing it and loving it, like, holy shit, this is actually good. This is not what I thought it was going to be. And then watching it this time, while I still liked it, I could really pick up more on its flaws. Like the stuff they added, like they added this sort of corny, sentimental element to it that I didn't really like very much, but for a big budget studio horror movie, it's well above average.
Yeah, I was surprised too, because I think I rented this on VHS or DVD in the late
Yeah,
90s or whenever this came out. And
2002.
2002, yeah. So that was
Mm,
like probably a DVD rental. And
yeah,
yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. And I was aware of that West Virginia Mothman folklore, and that whole cryptozoology thing
yeah,
is like something I'm interested in, or was interested in, at least back then.
yeah. No, I find that stuff very interesting, and I was listening to a podcast about Mothman, and I was like, all right, I gotta bust that out, and it's cool. Actually, it's like a 2 disc thing, comes with a whole bunch of extras about like the Mothman lore and all that. So that's really interesting stuff too. I've always been sort of fascinated by stuff like that and El Chupacabra and as I said before, sea monsters, things like that.
Yeah, cryptids, definitely.
Right. Anything else? I'm looking at my notes here. Oh yeah, I saw Botch. I went to a show.
Good for you.
Yeah. Just got to point that out. That was fun.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it was good to go to a show again. I don't go to enough of them.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And oh yeah, like since I do this podcast in my quote unquote office, I was looking over at my book collection and I have 6 volumes of the Max comic books, so I just started recently rereading that. Are you a fan of the Max?
Oh yeah, man. Max is great. I remember that's when we used to work when I used to work at the warehouse. I used to buy those trades like with the employee discount. Those are awesome.
Fuck yeah. And the MTV show was phenomenal, man. I think I was, man, 16, 17 when that came out.
Yep.
And man, it really kind of makes you miss the days where MTV was sort of cutting edge and doing interesting stuff like, the Max and Liquid Television. Uh, and there was never an official Blu-ray or DVD release of the Max, but I got the comics, so
That's killer.
yeah, man. What about you?
Though I didn't do the 31 days, I have been watching a bunch of stuff, but I talked about some of it last week, but in the last few days, I not a horror film, but I'll tell you why I'm mentioning this. Yeah, I watched Casino, the Scorsese film. We
Yeah.
watched it here. Me and Tina watched it, and it was with Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and John Bloom, aka Joe Bob Briggs. He's in
Dude,
that.
as soon as you said it, I know exactly who he played.
Yeah,
He's the useless guy who gets fired, right?
yeah. There's like shit heel, like redneck guy. What was his name? Yeah, they called him a Momo. They referred to him as a Momo, which was an apt description of him. So,
Wow.
yeah, Joe Bob. Yep.
Wow.
So that's
I
why I mentioned.
didn't even think of that until you mentioned it. That's crazy, dude. I love Casino. People have always disagreed with me. I prefer it to Goodfellas.
I mean, I don't prefer. I don't have a preference. They're both great. I love both
Sure.
of those movies. And yeah, just I always thought that was great. James Woods playing like the
Oh
sketchiest
man,
character ever. Lester.
he's so good in that. And I always point out how much I love the equal amount of blueberries in each muffin scene.
Oh yeah, totally,
I
definitely.
love that movie. Good catch
Um,
though, the Joe Bob. Wow.
yeah, yeah, totally. One of the disappointments though is we watched the John Carpenter Suburban Screams thing that's on I think it's on Peacock maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Bad.
Is it?
Well, dude, so bad that we put it on and like about 15 minutes into it, we're just like, I don't know, man. We want to watch something else. So we put Casino on after, in the middle of it. We just didn't finish.
Yeah, I kind of caught some reviews here and there for it, and they were not positive. And even listening to John Carpenter on Mick Garris's podcast wasn't really selling me on the show. I mean, first of all, I found like John Carpenter is like 75. He's been smoking for 70 of those 75 years. So his voice was a little rough, but so not worth checking out then, huh?
No, I got to say, it seemed like it almost felt like a really cheap like sci-fi channel like show,
Oof.
or really like something that just done on a very very with no one, everyone's just collecting a paycheck doing it. It seemed like.
Yeah, that seems to be John Carpenter's vibe for the last, what has it been, 15 years or so since the last, well, oh, no, it wasn't Ghost of Mars. It was The Ward was his last movie. And that just didn't feel like a John Carpenter movie at all. And
I just
I liked his episode of Masters of Horror, but again, kind of missing that Carpenter feel.
think that he is more interested in making music these days, which that is like definitely a strength that he has because I
For
really, really
sure.
I love all the music that he's been doing.
Oh, yeah. That's another thing I do on Halloween. I just play John Carpenter music all day.
Those three things that came out recently are cool. I got them all on vinyl, man. Those things sound great on vinyl.
Yeah. Did you go see him? I know he toured.
No, man, that's one of those things that just slipped by me somehow. You know,
Yeah, me too. My girlfriend went. This is before we met, and she still talks about how great it was. And I'm like, man, why didn't I go to that? There's always a couple things where you really like, oh, I'll catch it next time, or I just don't feel like going, and then you regret it, and that's one of them.
oh yeah, late coming in late. I literally watched this last night, but I rewatched The Invitation.
That's right. You texted me about that.
Yeah, and I always knew that I loved that movie. I liked that movie immediately after the first time I watched it, and going back several years. And I was listening to an episode of Evolution of Horror, and they talked about it in the Home Invasion series that they're doing, and
Mm-hmm.
it prompted me to watch it again because I was like, oh, it's just like a good movie. And yeah, dude, I think that's like high level filmmaking in my opinion.
Totally agree, Mike. I listened to that same episode too. It was funny because I was thinking about rewatching it. If you remember when we did our very first podcast together, we did our 10 favorite horror movies of the last decade, and The Invitation was my number 10.
Yeah, it's great, and just the acting, and it's one of those
Mm.
films that like you and I've talked about this a bunch where the types of horror films I like are just like a lot of dialogue and like these kind of slow burn
Yeah,
expository like heavy movies with not so much action but like just atmosphere. And that movie The Invitation is all about this atmosphere and tension, and just it's such a well acted, the writing, everything about it, the filming, the filmography, the yeah, the art of making the film,
yeah.
whatever that's referred to, is excellent. So yeah.
Oh man, yeah, totally. I love how it kind of played like it really doesn't show its hand till pretty significantly far into the movie. Like you're never ahead of anyone. You don't know what's happening. You're right there with the characters. I love stuff like that. And if you like that movie, I'm sure you've seen it, but if you're listening, I highly recommend Coherence, which is also sort of a dinner party horror movie.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's a good one. And it seems like that movie takes place in real time almost, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes. Great ending too.
Oh yeah. And I don't know if I talked to you about it, but you know, my plans on writing a book about the
Mm,
new millennium horror, you know, because like
yes.
everyone I've been working on outlines for it. And the invitation is in one of the subsections in the book because you know, since the turn of the century, you know, everyone writes, you know, everyone there's enough books out there about, you know, Dawn of the Dead and slashers and all that sort of stuff. But I feel like the first quarter century, you know, we're coming up on 25 years of the new millennium. It'd
Hmm.
be cool to analyze like the last 25 years in films. And because there's definitely these like sort of eras or subsections, you know, there's like the new French extremity, there's like, you know, this kind of quote unquote elevated horror, there's like the return of folk horror. And
Yeah,
you know, this fits in. I might do like a related section from folk horror with cults, you know, and movies like this and Kill List and all that sort of kind of fit together in a way, you know.
absolutely. That seems to be the stuff I gravitate towards myself. Speaking of elevated horror, I had to ask you about this, Mike. There is a sequel to It Follows in development now. It is happening. It was announced. How do you feel about that?
I kind of feel like they should have let the story go, you know what I mean? But
I
you know,
agree.
yeah, it kind of did its whole thing. The last thing I want with that, it was so perfect as just its own standalone movie, is to turn it into like some like, you know, series of sequels or, you know, that I'm just not into, you know.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's cool that the same writer director is on board, but that movie ended perfectly, and I don't want to know anymore. I like coming up with this stuff in my head, like what I think happened. Sometimes sequels really take away the power of the original film, which is something I think we'll probably talk about in discussing the movie we're about to talk about.
And so let's get into some of the calls. Last week we didn't have anyone, and this week we got two of our two listeners calling in. Of course, I'm referring to the Necro phone. If you want to leave us a voicemail, you can do so at 908-913-0782. 908-913-0782. We love hearing from you guys. I personally look forward to it every week. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So give us a call. So first up, we got the return of Mike from Pennsylvania.
Yo, Necro Hoods. It's Mike from Telford. Sorry I missed a week there, guys. Halloween is actually my anniversary, so I was kind of busy that weekend. Me and my gal been together 20 years now. We went out and did our normal Halloween stuff where there's a lot of farms around this area that do, you know, hay rides and haunted houses and corn mazes and shit. So we always hit at least one of them around the season. So really enjoyed that last episode. We watched Terrified last night because you guys brought that up, and that movie was cool. That was really creepy, man. I dug that, so definitely gonna watch that other one tonight. Hope you guys are doing good. Nothing much happening here. We really failed at that 31 Days of Halloween. I think we watched 10 movies. We got stuck on Doctor Sleep. We never watched that before, and 20 years of us being together, we've lost a lot of fucking people close to us. So that movie, it wasn't the best, but it kind of hit us in that way. So we kind of gave up after that. It made us fucking sad. So it did the job. It's definitely not The Shining, but I wasn't sorry I watched it. Well, in a way I was, because it brought up a lot of shit that we kind of keep tamped down. But all right, looking forward to next week, guys. Hope everything's good. Later.
First off, I'd like to congratulate Mike for 20 years
Oh
with his
yeah,
lady. That's awesome. I love hearing that people are in long-term relationships and stay together and seem happy. So congratulations, man.
hell yeah.
What are your thoughts on Dr. Sleep?
Oh man, I need another viewing because I go back and forth on it all the time. Uh, I don't love it, but it's not a bad movie, and it has an impossible task of being a sequel to The Shining based on a book that was a reaction to the film The Shining. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
it seemed like a monumental task, and I think Mike Flanagan really, I think he did the best he could. I know the book wasn't really highly regarded. I never read it, but uh, it has some really really great moments. I'll say that. I do need to watch it again. I saw the 3 hour cut too, and I know there's a shorter theatrical version that played. What did you think of it?
It was okay. I mean, I read the book. Definitely does not come close to being as good as the Shining itself, and the
Yeah.
movie, I mean, as much I know it's controversial with Stephen King, like he didn't like it, but I love The Shining. It's like one of my
Oh,
favorite,
yeah.
films in general. Um, yeah, and it's it was okay. I mean, it had its moments in it, but in general, Flanagan's always good, but I don't know. This
Yeah.
one's not one of my favorites. Well, not always, but
Yeah.
he's mostly good with Flanagan.
Yeah, yeah. I did finish Fall of the House of Usher. We were all talking about that last time we did our Exorcist episode, and big thumbs up for that one.
I still have to finish watching it, and I got to be honest with you guys, it's good, but I don't know how I feel about it really.
Oh, wow, interesting.
Maybe it's
Maybe
because maybe because I'm like a Poe like purist. I guess I don't know, man. You know what I mean? It's like you're fucking around with something that's like important to me. You know what I mean?
I
And
get what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, it's like if when people adapt Lovecraft and stuff, it's more I'm very critical of it.
Yeah, and very few seem to get Lovecraft right. And yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I was very, very pleased with it. Maybe we should talk about it sometime, Mike.
Yeah, no, totally. And I need to finish it, maybe restart it again from the beginning, and then try to bang it out the whole in one sitting or something like that.
Yeah, that's a thing. I think it's eight. It would be like 9 hours out of your day. It can be done, but it would be
Maybe
monumental.
over a weekend or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Next up, we have sorry man if I get your name wrong, Dave from Pittsburgh. It kind of got garbled, but thanks for calling, Dave, if that's your name. Please, if it's not your name, let us know. Let me call back and say my name is apologies though.
How's it going, gentlemen? It's Tavis in Pittsburgh. Just listened to the new show and figured you'd be covering When Evil Lurks. Agree with you guys. It's pretty cool movie. Yeah, I got to thank the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Did a turn and burn to Philly. A few weeks back to go see Oxbow, and got to thank you guys for keeping me company, keeping me awake for the drive. They were really good, man. Grateful to have finally seen those guys. Been a fan for a long time. But on one of the episodes past, Jeff mentioned something about not enough underwater monsters or something like that. So I got to recommend maybe think of that movie Octoman from 1971. Awesome rubber suit monster movie. Really cool if you're into that kind of thing. And it was actually Rick Baker's first movie. He went on to do a lot of stuff that we all know and love. Also, too, I don't know when the last time any of you have watched Henry Part 2. Just revisited that, and that is definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it in a while or ever. That Nick Giantoli isn't as menacing as Michael Rooker, but he does a good job. But the rest of the cast is really cool. Just believable characters. Just got that gritty, like direct, to video type vibe to it. I don't know. Just feel like it's been like kind of buried, and definitely stands on its own. It's pretty good. And then on the reading front, I got to recommend Michael Berryman's memoir. It's called It's All Good. And I don't know if anybody, listeners out there, have been fortunate to have met him or spent any time with him, but he's a good man. He's a great guy. It's definitely a pretty heavy-duty story and worth reading, but yeah, he's one of the good ones. So thanks for the shows, gentlemen, and we'll keep listening. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Dude, I had no idea there was even a Henry Part 2. Did you know that?
I did know that. I hadn't thought about it until he brought this up. I'm honestly not sure if I've seen it. I feel like I did, and that tells you all you really need to know about it. I mean, the original Henry is unforgettable. It's one of the most unsettling films I've ever seen in my life. I remember watching it at 16 in my girlfriend's basement and just being absolutely mortified. And if I did, the sequel was just, like he mentioned, the direct to video kind of thing. I mean, nowadays we have streaming, and that direct to video doesn't, it doesn't have the sort of stigma that it did then. Like this sort of low budget, cheap tie-in bullshit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not. I mean, people don't talk about it for a reason.
I have to check it out though. Still, I didn't even know it existed, and I'm a huge fan of Henry, the first one, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. I think the first one was like a high point in just an extreme filmmaking.
Absolutely, yeah. I would probably think American Psycho too. You know what I mean?
Another film I haven't seen. So,
we're really not missing anything.
Now, regarding underwater monsters, that's definitely a good recommendation. I haven't seen that film that he was referring to.
No, I haven't seen it either. So I'm definitely going to check that out.
Also, thanks for the heads up on the Mike Berryman novel. It's all good. Or not novel, but biography. It's all good. Definitely want to check that out too.
Yeah.
So that brings us to our feature of the week. And this week we're talking on the heels of When Evil Lurks. We're talking about Terrified, a movie that I feel like we should have covered back in 2017 when it came out.
Yeah, when I saw that this was came out in 2017, I was surprised. It didn't hit my radar until the pandemic. I don't think Shudder acquired it until right around then. I think this had been floating around for a few years before it came over here, but I could be wrong.
I'm trying to remember where I watched it. Maybe it was just on a Prime rental or something, because I remember reading about Terrified in Rue Morgue, and I was like, man, this sounds like right up my alley. And there was like I think those years there was a ton of like international films that came out. There was like those Southeast Asian films that were coming out, like Satan's Slaves, and this whole slew of international movies were coming out, and other films from South America. And this one, I read the description of it and I was like, man, this is great. And I rented it and I was totally blown away by it, but we never covered it. So now it's good that years later, on the heel of Demian Rugna's When Evil Lurks, we're talking about this one. So that's kind of cool.
And I'm actually watching When Evil Lurks. I'm actually watching that tonight. I have yet to see it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. Because there's a couple of things that I'll talk about, and I want you to let me know what you think about that after you see it.
Absolutely. I thought about trying to squeeze it in last night because I watched Terrified kind of late, and I was like, man, do I have time to watch a whole other movie? And decided I didn't. So I'm really looking forward to it after watching this.
All right, so written and directed by Demian Rugna. October 2017, it premiered at the Morbido Fest, and then May 3rd, 2018, it debuted in Argentina. The movie is 87 minutes long.
Cool.
And, I'm just going to run through the cast. Maximiliano Gione as Commissioner Funes, Norberto Gonzalo as Jano, I guess how you say his name. One of the coolest names. Elvira Oneto as Dr. Maura Albrecht, George L. Lewis as Rosentak, Julieta Valina as Alicia, Damian Salomon as Walter, Augustin Ritano as Juan, Natalia Señorales as Clara, Matthias Raskovachia, destroying this kid's name, as one of the more pivotal characters, the boy.
Yes, yeah.
And of course, Lorenzo Langer as Patricio. So that's the cast.
Yeah, not a huge cast, not a long runtime. The movie moves quick, and man, like it was over before I even knew it. Like it just sort of ended. I was like, oh, that's it? I thought there was another hour.
Yeah, so it moves fast, it is only 87 minutes long, which is still, I wonder if there's a longer cut of this somewhere, or if this is, what I'm trying to say.
It's
Like I feel
no, yeah, definitely. There were some things almost that I felt like were cut out, because there's a conversation that takes place between two of the characters later, and it seemed to reference something that didn't happen. So I do think there is a longer cut that that existed at one point.
this movie starts off in one of like a favorite setting of mine, just like the mundane everyday world of everyday life. You know what I mean? We're at the home of Clara in Buenos Aires, and she's hearing voices, which from the drain, from the kitchen sink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, that's like some of my favorite settings, where you're just in this like very, very natural, mundane world, and then bizarre things start happening to you. And it's like, some of my favorite fiction just in general starts off like very unremarkable setting like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Two normal people just living their lives, and something strange happens to one of them, and the other person doesn't think much of it until he's forced to.
Yeah, and there's what these voices are telling her is that they're planning to kill her.
Yeah, exactly. And they're also having a little bit of trouble with their neighbor, Walter. Walter makes a lot of noise, a lot of weird bumps going on in the night. They start to notice cracks in their wall, and they think it's coming from Walter doing renovations on his house.
Now, it's interesting the way they frame this up, because you're thinking like, oh, there's some guy, like a bad neighbor living next door, but there's these two like parallel stories that are going on with Walter and Clara. Well, Clara, we'll find out what happens to her, but the guy, her husband's name is Juan, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's Juan. Yeah, exactly.
So there's like a parallel sort of occurrence going on in these two houses. So at night, Juan wakes up after he hears some thumping noises, and he probably thinks it's just Walter wilding out. And and he sees Clara's dead body being smashed repeatedly against the walls of the bathroom by some invisible force.
Yes, and we're about maybe 5 minutes into the film, and you're already getting like some very like horrific imagery. I love the look on Juan's face. It's so real. Like he knows what he's seeing, but it hasn't sunk in yet.
This is like a recurring thing like that Demian Rugna seems to love to do in his movies, where it's like the things that you don't think are going to happen. Like you're like, he's not going to kill this kid, and the kid's dead. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's like the kind of stuff that happens even in you'll see when you watch When Evil Lurks. There's like, you're like, whoa, things happen, and you're like, I can't believe I just saw that, and that's you see that in Terrified as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think, again, it's just sort of setting up these people, Juan and his wife, and the movie switches perspectives not long after that scene. Juan's been arrested. Obviously, they think he killed his wife. And they say, well, tell me about your neighbor or whatever. And then we see what's happening through Walter's perspective. And so, again, we're like, just a few minutes into the film, and we've switched perspectives. Now we're kind of following Walter and his problems with what's going on in his house. Now, this was a duplex, right? Like, they shared a wall. Yeah.
Now, the thing with Walter, the difference in his experience, excuse me, is that you get the sense that he's being tormented like for a longer period of time, because there's scenes of him trying to get like in touch with a psychiatrist or whatever, someone to help him. He's like, I'm seeing things like, I can't sleep, like all this kinds of stuff, and he's experiencing these things over a longer period of time, and it's driving him into this like state.
Yeah, there's a desperation with Walter. I really like that they show him talking to the doctor or the doctor's receptionist or whatever at work. Like, he's he's at work. He's got like a button-up shirt and a tie on, but he's hunched over and like stressed out. I don't know. I just really thought there was like a little undercurrent of humor to it. Like this guy at work, just he's really weird, sketched out, and he doesn't know what to do. He's so desperate. He's making these phone calls at work. I thought that was a very nice touch.
Yeah. And this touches on like this kind of almost like primordial fear that people have, that it's almost like every kid's nightmare. It's what he's experiencing, with like the fear of something being under your bed or in a closet.
Yeah.
And that I thought was really effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Walter, then we think, we're going to follow Walter, but then again, it kind of switches gears on us, the film. Walter disappears.
Yeah.
And we get 3 paranormal investigators come to talk to Juan and a regular cop, Funes.
Yeah,
And
Funes, yeah.
Yeah, so then it switches perspectives again. I guess Funes is would you say he's the central character in this?
Yeah, he would be like the sort of common thread throughout this whole narrative. And what interesting to note about Funes is that he's approaching some kind of retirement too. Like has some medical issues, maybe I think it's his heart or something like that.
Yeah, they said I think they said specifically what it was, but I didn't catch it. I didn't write it down. And he has a hearing
relatively
aids.
Relatively young guy too. I mean, he's probably like mid-40s or something like that, maybe 40.
Yeah, that's what I'd say too.
Yeah, but there's something. He's like coming. He's a short timer. Like he's coming down to the end of his his career with the police department, and of course he lands this case. Of course that's like the classic cop story, or it's like, I only got like, 2 months left and I'm retired. And then you get this one hell of a case dropped on you,
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting to me that we really don't meet him till the film's already been going for a little while now. You don't see what's happening completely through his eyes. We've already seen it from a few different perspectives. I thought it was a very interesting way to frame a movie. Like it almost feels like there isn't really a main character.
Yeah, this third occurrence has to do with Alicia, and she's her dead son basically, and it turns out that Funes and Alicia used to have a relationship, which I thought was like an interesting flip. You know what I mean? That was kind of like I don't know, I thought that was interesting that they weren't strangers.
Right. This is actually one of my criticisms of the movie is that I felt that didn't add much to the story. It was really, really underdeveloped. Like it's like why I thought it would have more significance to the plot, but it didn't at all.
Well, that's what led me to believe that there might be a longer cut of this movie.
Right.
They did make a point out of bringing that up.
Yeah, it just felt a little out of place and undercooked. I feel like there's a lot with Funes that maybe got left on the cutting room floor. He's such an interesting character. He doesn't really behave like people who normally behave in these kinds of films,
Yeah. Maybe with when Evil Lurks looks like it's fairly successful, maybe another cut of this film will come out.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, we talk like let's talk about the kid for a second.
That's like the real this is the real point of this whole part is this kid. Now it's her son who gets hit by a bus.
Yeah.
Like his him getting hit by a bus. Like the first time I saw this movie, I was just like, holy shit. He just the kid gets taken out by this bus, dude, which is brutal. It's almost on like a Stephen King level,
That's exactly what I was thinking. It had like a King vibe to it. It's still like unexpected and shocking, and but I mean, is it the thing that caused that to happen, or was it an accident?
That's an excellent question because I have thoughts about that, but those thoughts didn't really arise until after I watched When Evil Lurks.
Okay.
you know, and I might be completely out of my mind or completely like not, you know, totally out of line maybe, but thinking that these two films might have some connection, you know.
No, I mean, like I said, I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, that could very well be possible. Yeah, I gotta say, man, that kid corpse coming back to life, or not even coming back to life, just seeing that corpse sitting at the kitchen table, it's one of the most horrific images I've seen in a horror movie in a long time.
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I was on Brandon's podcast where we talked about the most disturbing images, you know, of like horror films a while back. And that was one of the ones that the scariest moments in horror. That's one of them. Is like, I mean, just think about it. There's like the fact that it's a kid too, like this young boy claws his way out of the grave, you know, and just ends up at home, and him sitting complete, well, almost completely still at the kitchen table with like a glass of milk and cereal in front of him. Just sitting.
Yeah, and yeah, it's so much more effective that he's not moving or anything. He's just sort of sitting there, and then you hear a noise and it cuts back to him, and the people are debating, like, was his arm in that position before? It was so, man, it really, really bothered me.
Yeah, me too. You know, and then when they come to investigate him, and because at this point, Quinez brings his buddy Janos into this thing, who's like you know, like a specialist on this sort of stuff, or Jono.
Yeah, he used to be a coroner, I think I have, but then he sort of got interested in the paranormal.
I think I'm going to make a career move like that. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, dude.
I'm going to give up my career.
I think the three of us, the Necromaniacs, should branch out into ghost hunting. You know, we can sell the show to Sci-Fi Channel or Netflix or something. You know, three guys who don't know what they're doing hunting ghosts. I mean, who wouldn't watch that?
Pretty awesome, man.
Fuck yeah, dude, I'm in.
So Jano is getting really close to this thing, and he's like checking it out, and they're commenting on how it smells like rotting flesh, and it's like, you know, they check to see if he's breathing, and he's not breathing, and you know, it's just so fucking intense, man.
It is. The look on the kid's face is so gnarly. Like his skin is like this grayish green, and it just has this like just really like not evil look on his face, just, you know, what a dead body like looks like, you know. It's oh man, it's so creepy.
So of course they you know, they suspect you know, they're actually coming up with a plan as to like what they're going to report, because that I thought was interesting too, like how Quinez and Jano are discussing how they're going to report it, you know, like it's obviously they think something supernatural is going on, maybe not initially, but they can't report like, oh yeah, there's a reanimated corpse that just showed up, you know.
Right. And yeah, I couldn't like tell, were they trying to protect the Alicia, the mom, because, you know, Funes had a relationship with her? Maybe. I thought I read it as they kind of suspected that she dug this kid up. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why they made it a point to show that Quinez and Alicia had a relationship, because I think cops generally with a stranger would just report, okay, this person's, you know, dug up a dead body and brought it back to the house, you know?
Right. And I just thought it was odd. You know, there was no like scene or anything of Funes pulling Alicia aside, like asking how she is. You know, you never like saw them together, like talking about having a past relationship. I just thought it was a weird touch. Like it, you know, once you mentioned that they did have a relationship, you know, a couple scenes, quick scenes of them talking, you know, maybe like, oh, how have you been? You know, how you doing? You know, it feels very impersonal between the two of them.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, once again, it reinforces my idea that, you know, at least to me, that there might be a different cut of this film floating around.
Right. Yeah. But that's sort of like how we get everyone together. So they're looking, Funes and Jano are at Alicia's house, and across the street, one of the other, Albrecht, the paranormal investigator, is looking at Walter's house.
Yeah,
And
they meet out on the street, and he recognizes her because he's been to one of her seminars or something like that.
right, yeah. So they come to the conclusion that this is not a coincidence, that what are the chances two strange things happening in the same neighborhood? And so yeah, this movie also jumps back in time a lot, or like kind of plays with time a little bit. Like it's and most of what we're seeing up until here, this is all in the past.
Yeah,
And
yep.
yeah. So yeah, so the paranormal investigators go to see Juan. They come up with a plan of, there's three paranormal investigators. Each investigator is going to stay in one of these three houses. And
That's when all hell breaks loose. And
yeah, and why is Juan there? Not Juan, Funes. Like couldn't. I was like, yeah, he's not a paranormal investigator. What's he doing there? Did I miss that?
too. It's not like an official police investigation, and so he's not there in any kind of official capacity. He's just there maybe because he feels involved, and maybe once again this is the connection with Alicia and why he has some sort of stake in this whole thing.
Okay, yeah. I couldn't for the life of me figure out, like, fine. I was like, did I miss something? It doesn't seem like he needs to be there, but that what you just said makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's just a little underdeveloped, you know what I mean, as to why like their relationship is just a little underdeveloped. They touch on it, but they don't really develop it at all, but I think that's why it exists in the movie.
And for a movie that's 87 minutes, I wouldn't mind 3 extra minutes of, that stuff. Just something to just, sort of punch that part up a little bit. But yeah, like you said, all hell breaks loose, and that's sort of the meat of the movie is these paranormal investigators in the house. I wanted to talk a bit about jump scares. I think most people, like, listening to this probably hate jump scares. I'm not like a big fan of them either. They're cheap. They're not scary after the first time you see them. This movie has quite a few jump scares that are really effective.
Yeah, I mean, not spoiler alert. The way that Albrecht gets dispatched,
and then comes back.
Yeah, it's
Dude,
like, yeah.
I was trying to figure out how they shot, like, because it doesn't look like CGI; it looks practical. I was trying for the life of me to figure out how the fuck they did that when she comes out to the car and her head's upside down.
Dude, yeah, and she just like emerges from the darkness while he's on the phone and in his car, and it's just so, just the whole thing. It's like it almost has this. A lot of this has the same feelings for me as back when I was a kid when I watched The Thing for the first time. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a way different type of movie, but the same nightmare world that The Thing puts you in is like what Terrified accomplished for me later as an adult man watching this.
No, absolutely. Like the scenes, the last whatever, like when they go to investigate the house, like it's very nightmarish and unnerving, and it's not a slow burn. Like as soon as they get in those houses, all like basically everything goes to hell.
Now, the meat of the story, and this is where you're watching this and you're like, okay, this is like a cosmic horror, basically, because Albrecht kind of describes what she believes is going on, where there's this is like a portal, like this neighborhood has become like a portal to a different dimension, basically, and these beings are trying to cross over, and they're using water as a conduit to enter into our reality. And I thought that was really cool. Like, and this is the thing that I like about this film, as well as When Evil Lurks, where the supernatural is dealt with in almost a practical way. You know what I mean? Like the cops come and investigate it. There's like this pseudo-scientifical explanation as to what's going on. It's not just like, oh yeah, it's magic. It's like, no, there's these microorganisms like in this water stream, and this is how it's entering. There's like this description of it that has, like, if you have to make one leap of faith and you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense,
Right. Yeah, exactly. And again, it's just Albrecht's theory. It does not really spell out what is happening. What's the other one? I can't even read my own writing. Reztak, the third paranormal investigator.
Oh,
He
Rosenstock.
Rosenstock. Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
I can't fucking spell or write. Rosenstock. He has, he kind of figures it out a little bit beforehand too, that there are two different perspectives, the light and the dark. And these things are always here. We just can't see them. You
Yeah.
need to kind of like, it's a philosophical element. If you change your perspective, you see them. I really like that a lot.
Yeah.
And it
It's
doesn't,
it's almost like a From Beyond kind of vibe. You know what I mean? Like the Lovecraft story where there's like, this different focus of reality, and these things are like always there.
yeah, exactly. Like if you were to explain this movie to someone, it is deceptively simple. You're like, it's basically a haunted neighborhood, but there's a lot more going on though than just that. And what did you think of the creatures themselves? I mean, this thing that you really don't get a good look at it, which I think is a very smart move.
Great. They're terrifying. They're scary looking. You got this. It's the creature design was like successful because you get the impression that they exist in two different places almost,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like you don't really get a good look at their structure. Like at one point, you see under the bed that you see like a set of feet and you see a face. Like it doesn't make any. You're like, are there two of those things, or is that one just sort of shaped like a pretzel? I don't know. Like I thought it was very smart to kind of keep them as hidden as possible.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I don't think the budget on this was huge, but this doesn't look like the effects don't look bad. Like when you see the mom, or I'm sorry, Juan's wife at the beginning, sort of being slammed back and forth in a tub, it looks there's something unnerving and creepy about it. Like I don't know if they did it practical or not, but just man, like every shot of like a creature or a monster, it all looks really good.
Yeah. And once again, that's why I bring up The Thing, which is
Mm,
a triumph of practical special effects. And like I said, it had the same effect on me now than it did when I was a kid watching The Thing for the first time, where the practical effects had this like madness inducing like otherworldly quality to it. And and as a young kid, that was right around the time I started reading Robert E. Howard and then Lovecraft.
mm.
So all that environment stuff kind of like connected with me. And that this movie gives me the same feeling. It's like this madness, this world of chaos that these things are coming from, or that this dimension that they're in, which is here, occupying the same temporal region that we're in, but is shifted off of some axis that makes it not like viewable by us. But they're this world of like chaos and madness that they're in.
Yeah. Yeah, like you mentioned, very Lovecraftian From Beyond sort of vibes. Um, I got to point out, I really like Funes's reaction to what's going on. I think he pulled his gun like 4 different times in this movie and said, "I need to get out of here," just as many times. Like he keeps going from house to house saying he needs to get out of here, but he doesn't leave.
Totally.
At first, I don't know. I found a undercurrent of dark humor throughout this movie. I don't know if you agree.
That's actually present. That's like one of the things that's present in Rugna's films is intensity, a bleak vibe, and more so when evil lurks, and then an undercurrent of dark humor. And it's like, but each done in exactly the right measure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think like I don't know how many films he's directed. I'm not sure if this is his first film or what, but man, he has like a real mastery of like the tone and nailing it. Like the kid at the breakfast table, that could be goofy, and it kind of is, but it works. There's something so unsettling about it, man. He just nails it. All those little moments that you need to nail to make a really good horror movie, he does. Like the wife being beaten by an invisible force in the beginning, the kid at the breakfast table, the jump scare, the woman Albrecht coming out with her head upside down. just kind of walking towards the car. You know, every moment like that is perfect.
So real quick about Demian Rugna. So these are the films he's done. He has a movie from 2007 called The Last Gateway. Intriguing
Great title.
title. Yep.
Yeah.
2011, Cursed Bastards. I guess it's a segment in a anthology. And then in 2016, he has You Don't Know Who You're Talking To, which could be maybe a comedy or who knows, you know.
Yeah.
Then Terrified in 2017. He had a segment in the 2022's Satanic Hispanics. His segment, I saw it. I also saw it. And then, of course, now When Evil Lurks.
Which is getting a lot of attention, like you said.
Yeah.
I have not listened to your episode on Where Evil Lurks because I haven't seen the film yet, but I am very much looking forward to.
Watch the film first, definitely.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But I'm taking you guys really liked it.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely rewatch that one too. All right, so Funes makes it out. He comes back and burns down the house.
Yeah, well, he has a heart attack, doesn't he?
Yeah, basically, yeah, he has a heart attack, but he does make it out alive, though.
He does, and okay, there was a moment before where with him and Alicia, and this is what I was talking about. She's like, "I saw what you did to my child. I couldn't let you rebury him. You tried to make me think I was crazy or so." I was like, "What? Did he try to make her think she was crazy?" Like, I felt like that's what they were talking about, something that was missing from the film.
Yeah, like a missing piece. Yeah, that's an editing issue, I think. You know, definitely something that it could have been like locked in a little bit more succinctly, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's a fairly minor. It didn't take me out of the movie. I just was like, well, what is she talking about? Did I miss something? But again, there's this weird humor to this. Like, you know, you're not going to bury my son. She goes and takes him out of the freezer, and she's driving around with him in the back seat.
Yeah, it's good. Definitely.
Yeah. So Funes is sort of like your classic Lovecraft character in a way, where he has seen a peek into the other world, and he'll never be the same. You know, at the end of the film, he's sort of disappeared too. He's like a fugitive.
I wonder if I always want to interview these guys and find out where they're coming from. You know what I mean? Because one time I interviewed the guys who did Black Mountainside, or not Black Mountainside, Seder, that dude.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he's like, I never read Lovecraft. I was like, okay, cool, right on.
Yeah, it's kind of that's hard to imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine he was a Lovecraft fan, this filmmaker. It would surprise me if he never read him.
Yeah. All right, so we come back into the present time, and we have Juan back at the psych facility, and there he's being, you know, more questioning is going on with him, interrogations with the police trying to get to the bottom of what happened. But he's keeps seeing this like tall man that looks like Rosenstock, but all burned up, like lurking in the background.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And we didn't see what happened to Rosenstock, did we? Like,
not really.
Yeah. Like, it kind of hints that something came out of the closet, maybe, and got him, but we never found out what happened to him. But I mean, now that Juan is sort of seeing his ghostly presence in there, and all burnt up, we assume Rosenstock died in the fire that Funes said.
Yeah. That was my impression too. You know.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a chair comes flying at the camera. You know, the end, like the movie just sort of ends. Man, it was very surprising. It was like, oh, that's it. Which I think, I don't know. Did you get like a vibe that they were trying to maybe go for sequels with this, or was this just ambiguous for artistic purposes? I couldn't tell.
I think it was ambiguous for artistic purposes, just because you know, this movie was made on a fairly low budget, and I don't think Rugna would have the idea of making this type of film with sequels in mind. But not so much a sequel, but I feel like this movie exists in the same world as When Evil Lurks.
Yeah, you were saying.
Yeah, You know, because in both films, there's like these in Lurks, they straight up name them as like demons coming into this reality. But it's I don't know, it's just so interesting to me, like what you're after watching this and then watching Lurks, tell me like what your impressions are.
Oh no, I definitely will. Was really excited to watch that, and I do gotta mention that was the second time I watched Terrified. I saw it first during the pandemic. Pretty sure it was during the pandemic, and you know, it didn't grab me the first time. I remember I watched this at something like 3 or 4 in the morning, since you know, I wake up and I can't fall back asleep. And I think sometimes, you know, like that watching something really early can add to the atmosphere of the film. But I think that time it just kind of hurt it. Like, I don't think I was paying as close enough attention or what, but it didn't really make an impact on me. So when I watched it again last night, I mean, it had a deep impact on me. I loved this. And I don't know, sometimes it takes a minute maybe to get on a filmmaker's wavelength. Sort of like, you know, you just interviewed the Addams Family, and the first time I saw The Deeper You Dig, you know, I wasn't that into it, but then, you know, I saw Hellbender, and it made me want to go back and watch Deeper You Dig, because I'm like, oh, I kind of get what these guys are doing now. I'm on their wavelength.
Yeah, the new one is like it just keeps getting better with those guys. Like I really believe that their future in filmmaking is going to be pretty prominent as they make more and more of these movies, honestly.
Yeah, no, I get that. I can't wait to watch the new one.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just needed a second viewing from me to click. And man, did it click. This is one of the best horror movies of the new millennium. I mean, top 20 for sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So what do you give it on a score of 1 to 5? One skull being poor and 5 skulls being the best.
I give it a 4.5.
Yeah, that's exactly what I gave it. And the only reason it's not a 5 sculler is because you know, there was like a couple of things in the maybe just the editing that like we were talking about, the underdevelopment of some of the characters, I thought was yeah, and that's more of like a really picky thing because I wanted to know more about some of the characters, which in a way is good because I was invested in the film, you know. But yeah. So that I gave it a 4.5.
Yeah, I was fine with the ambiguity of the what was happening. Like I said, I like kind of coming to you know, they give you sort of like, you know, other dimensions theories. Like, it doesn't really spell everything out for you. I appreciate that stuff, but I would much rather have the characters just a tiny bit more developed. But man, this is really, really, really good. Like this one a lot.
Awesome. So there you go, guys. That's our rundown of Terrified. And of course, try to watch these movies. They're both on Shudder now. So watch this one and When Evil Lurks. Make a night out of it. And let us know what you think of these two films and what you think of Demian Rugna, who I think is going to become you know, another filmmaker to keep track of in the coming years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hollywood will come knocking on his door very soon, I think.
He's gonna do like the Black Adam or something like that next.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be doing some fucking Marvel movie or something. God, I hope not. But you know, I would be very excited to see this guy with you know, a bigger budget just to see what he does, man. Like you said, he's one to watch for sure.
All right, guys, we'll talk to you next week. Take care.
Take care.
Right on, man. That was good.
Right on. Yeah. I gotta run, man. But
all right, dude.
We'll come up with another one soon. I'll text you tonight and let you know what I think of that movie.
Yeah, let me know, man. I want to see what you think about it. All right. All right,
yeah.
dude. Take care.
All right, man. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Pipe Buster.